Hello students, I am Dr. L.K. Das, Assistant Professor of Sociology at the Department of HSS, IIT Roorkee, and I welcome you all to another lecture of the NPTEL course Power and Politics in Contemporary India, a Sociological View. Now, in the previous class, we had discussed about elites and how elites are formed and how elites rule in a particular society, even if it is a democracy. And in the same lineage, today I have a specific question to you. Think about a situation in which maybe that has happened when you were in your school days or in your college or when whatever kind of situation you find yourself in. There are two individuals or two persons in your neighborhood. During the weekends, one person or one family goes to a temple, a church, a mosque, a gurudwara, or any of those places. There's another group of people who go out to look at museums. There's a third group of people who go out to watch Hindi movies. There's a fourth group of people who go and watch Hollywood movies. And there's a fifth group of people who go to theaters, not cinema halls, to theaters to watch live performance. Do you think they all go to all these groups of people, all these individuals go to these specific places because they like it, or because there's something more to it? Is it because they have money to afford? That's the reason why somebody goes to a multiplex, whereas somebody goes to a cinema hall or a single screen cinema hall. Why do some people go to multiplexes while others go to theaters? You might like to spend your time in a museum. Some people just want to watch Netflix and chill. So, in today's class, we will discuss that all these phenomena that I just described, it's not just because of money. It is not just because you like doing it. Liking Netflix and chill is a class position rather than your choice only. Remember, political sociology is a bridge between political science and sociology, but it is also highly inclined towards sociology. And what sociology teaches us from the very first moment itself is that what is considered as natural is always socially constructed. So, your decision or your friends and family and your neighborhood's decision of going to a place, doing something or engaging themselves to some activities is usually a socially constructed process. It is not just about money. So, class is not equivalent to money. That is what the French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu tells us. Pierre Bourdieu happens to be one of the most cited, most respected sociologists of 20th century. And as a matter of fact, every work he produced became a classic. And in today's class, we'll discuss two of his classic texts, Distinction, written and published in 1984, first in French and then in English, then Forms of Capital, again in 1986. Now, Pierre Bourdieu was French. He was born in a small place. He did not come from a very wealthy family. But because of his own work and the conditions that were given to him, he reached the topmost level of academic distinction in his own country as well as across the globe. Was he rich? No, he was not rich. He never became rich. But as a scholar, as an academician, he is one of the richest individuals of 20th century. You can also say that he is almost like Bill Gates of academia. So first thing he did was that he looked at the works of Marx and Weber and said that we cannot understand either Marx's work or Weber's work as individual works. Rather, we have the beauty of hindsight, or we have the advantage of hindsight, which means that if I am here and I have to go to point C, I already know my place, the distance that I have traveled from A to B. I know what has happened here, what are the beauty of Marx and Weber, or what are the praiseworthy aspects of it, as well as a critique of it, what they lack. So, the advantage of hindsight also means that Marx and Weber are not antagonists to each other. Rather, they are together in our understanding of a multi-dimensional class theory. Because in the first class itself, if you remember, I have discussed why political sociology is multidisciplinary. Because one single discipline is incapable, or one single scholar is incapable of comprehending the very intricate nature of the society-state relationships, how we work and why we work. So that is the reason why he argues that in order to understand class formation, we have to look at both resources as well as recognition. And resources, as we had discussed in the previous class, is not just about money. For Bourdieu, it is also about culture, and we'll discuss about it in subsequent slides. Now, before going into culture as such, he brings a very significant concept called habitus. Now, you can call it habit. You might have come across a number of the books, a number of YouTube videos, or number of other the WhatsApp forwards, or on Facebook, or on any of these social media sites, that do something for 21 days and it forms a habit. Some people might again say that, okay, the 21 days is the beginning of a habit, let us do it for 60 days. So 21 days is the starting point, 60 days is the end point, and by the time you reach 60 days, it gets imprinted on your mind, it gets imprinted on your body. Whether you want to learn a new art, you want to learn a new craft, you want to learn how to speak in terms of speech, manners, or posture. That's the reason why he calls it an embodied disposition. It's the way through which you do something to an extent that you do not even realize that you are doing it. Think about a situation in which you get up in the morning and the first thing you go is to wash your face. Have you ever taken a step back and asked this question, why do I wash my face every day in the morning? Why do I have to brush my teeth? Why do I take breakfast? Why do I do what I do? According to Bourdieu, we do it because of this habitus, because of the embodiment of whatever we are doing. We have been socialized in a way, because we are part of a society, our families as primary sites of socialization teaches us speech that we call as mother tongue. Manners, why do we show respect and regard to our parents, to our grandparents, to our siblings, or to people around us, or our teachers. Posture. Now, posture is very significant, because there are people, there are the specialists who'd look at you and tell you what your posture tells. Are you standing straight with your the head hold high, or you are crouching? If you are crouching, that means you are not confident enough. If your speech doesn't have energy, that means you are not confident enough. If your manners are not manly, then your culture has not given you the sense of your place in the social space. And each one of them leads to the second aspect of sense of one's place. Because power operates through the body, through your speech, how you hold a spoon, how I am holding this pen. Am I holding it at the middle? Am I holding it at the center, or am I holding closer to the tip? It tells what kind of handwriting I am going to have. So this way, habitus is part of our body. It is now subconscious, and we do it without even thinking twice. The moment we start thinking about it, that is when we realize that there is something called power, and how it is getting operationalized through our body, through our thoughts. Now, Bourdieu links this with something even more interesting, which he calls as distinction. You remember the point we started with, why somebody goes to a multiplex, somebody goes to a single screen theater, single screen movie theater, and somebody goes to a art theater. According to Bourdieu, we go it because of our taste and because we want to distinct ourselves from others. Because cultural preferences are also our political preferences. And these political preferences and cultural preferences are dominated by elite versus popular tastes. I like Bollywood music. I don't have a great taste for classical music. Now, when I say I don't have a great taste for classical music, that means I have not been socialized on those parameters. So, when somebody has been socialized on that, they know, or they can project it at a different level. Some people like rock music, some people like jazz, some people like some other kind of music or folk music. So, music in a day-to-day sense also is a marker of both taste, which is socially constructed and which creates distinctions. And that is where you have the elite and the popular tastes. So, jazz is not popular music or not pop music or not commercial. So, I'll tell you something about Maria Sharapova. If you know, you can also go and search her name on the internet. She was a Russian tennis player. At one point in time, she was one of the top players in the world. And in one interview, when she was asked what she did with her first paycheck that she earned from her tennis career, and her immediate answer was that she went to an art gallery and spent the entire paycheck getting one particular painting. Some people go and buy a car. Some people go and do something else. So, this is the difference between the tastes of an elite, or who wants to be an elite, and a popular taste. And this is our cultural preferences, which also mark our political significance. I'm speaking about Maria Sharapova now, giving her example because she is part of this, not part of the popular test. So, through this, we are also classifying the taste and classifying who is classifying these individuals or these groups of people. That is why he uses classifying the classifier. Classifying the classifier essentially means that there is a culture who is classifying someone's position within society. And because of our habitus, we have internalized it, we have embodied it to understand that this is my position. I cannot or I should not be moving out of it. If I move out of it, that means what will people think of me? So, there are n number of examples like that, in which, for example, if you come from a small village or from a small town and moving to a bigger city, back home your friends, your family would tell you that now you are going to the bigger city, now you are going to a metropolitan city, don't change. Now, I would think that they are saying it primarily because they are concerned about us. Yes, they are concerned about us, they love us, they care for us, but at the same time, they know or they want to maintain the boundaries. In a bigger city, you have one specific class position. Here you have another specific class position. So, let us say this is to be class, this is class 1. So, the transformation or transition from here to here could be quite drastic, to an extent that now there is significant amount of literature using Bourdieu's aspect notion of habitus and distinction to tell us why people who have the lowest or inhabit the lowest strata in a metro, when they move during vacation or during puja holidays, when they go to their small town or villages, they spend a lot of money buying good new clothes, getting the good food, as well as buying presents for the people back here, because that is how they are trying to create the distinction between the two. This distinction could be positive, this distinction could be negative. This is also a form of reference point, whom we are referring to. The urban life is different from rural life. So, this urbanization and this rural areas, in a sense, present you with symbolic boundaries of political significance. अरे वो तो बदल गया. Now, this is not a sleight of hand comment. This tells us about tastes. You were a vegetarian now. When you moved to a hostel, started staying there, you became vegetarian. Back at home, you consume more of vegetables. Here you consume more of egg and paneer. So, that is also a change of taste. It's because you are watching people how they are doing and what they are doing. But this is not just about capital in the sense of money or wealth, like everybody else spoke about. So, for Bourdieu, capital is about economy, culture, social and symbolic, and they are connected to each other. Economic capital, as we have been discussing, as you might already know, it's about wealth, it's about income and it's about property, but it is not sufficient in itself. Rather, what is increasingly important is your cultural capital, because it is cultural capital that determines whether you are part of elite or you are part of non-elites. So these two significant differences are marked by your cultural upbringing or cultural socialization. Cultural socialization happens with the skills you have attained. Whether you have gone to a public school with ICSE board or a public school with CBSE board, or a public school or a state sponsored school in which you have a different kind of syllabus. Have you read Shakespeare in the Shakespearean English, or you have read Shakespeare in modern English, or you have read Shakespeare in translated text? After that, have you been educated or have you moved on to some IITs, IIMs, or some of the elite universities in India or abroad? So each one of them is part of culture which gives you something called capital. The degree that you are getting, the knowledge that you are earning, the education that you are getting. And then the third is that of social capital, which means your networks and connections, your friends, peer group, family, so on and so forth. And how all three of them can be linked to the symbolic aspect of prestige and honor. When you move out of your hometown or a village to go and study in a institution of repute in any of these urban locations, the first aspect of prestige you get is that you have entered that institution. Back home, people are happy to tell that, okay, my son or my daughter is in an IIT. My son or daughter has gone to JNU, or my son or daughter is now studying in so and so the university abroad. It is a form of prestige. So these forms of prestige, as I have been saying, can be linked to economic capital. It is linked to economic capital because you have money. That is the reason why you can afford, or your parents can afford you to send it to certain schools. Because you have economic capital, that's the reason why some leaders can even think of contesting for an MP or an MLA, or even control or lobby media groups and others. Because you have cultural capital, that is the reason why you have certain manners, you have certain speech, and of what you are going to do and what you are not going to do. Again, Bourdieu is dividing cultural capital into three segments: embodied capital or embodied cultural capital, objectified cultural capital, and institutionalized cultural capital. Embodied, our bodies, as I said, about manners, speech, and taste. Objectified in the form of books, artworks. Think about yourself that when everybody is writing or reading from newspapers or from guidebooks, you actually attempted to read from the books. Or for this course itself, somebody might be using maybe ChatGPT or something else to read some of the texts, and you actually went on to read the books that are books or articles that are suggested in this course. And so the degree that you are getting or the qualification you are going to get will mark a significant difference between somebody who has taken shortcuts or so-called shortcuts. There could be various reasons because of which somebody is taking it, and you have done something different. So schools always reward cultural capital because they want to reproduce elites. Go sit down the day you watch this video, sit down on the internet, on a laptop, open a window on your internet or a tab on your internet. Check out all the, or even one single international school. Compare it with a state board school and also compare it with a public school. See the kind of activities, the kind of advertisement they create for themselves. Who are the people who have come to their campus and where they are going, what kind of activities they are engaged in. Are they engaged in the debates? Are they engaged in sports? Are they engaged in other kind of co-curricular activities, or they are only studying? Whether they study thoroughly, or are they only learning how to infer patterns? So there is a great deal of usage of cultural capital through which elites are reproduced, through which we understand elites. The next set of capital is social capital, which essentially means being part of certain networks, associations, or memberships, and access to opportunities through connections. Now, it's a very interesting way through which we look at it, because social capital is a very famous concept and approach that is used by World Bank, that is used by most of the banks, most of the governments, as well as United Nations. And they claim that through social capital, the marginal groups can better their income generating opportunities, and then they can do something with their lives. Now, when some of these groups come into picture, what they are not showing us, or what they are not telling the people who are at the margins, is that your networks matter. And when I say networks, associations, or memberships, it's not just that you know the 3 people from your neighborhood. You are part of a network called CII, Confederation of Indian Industries. You are part of a network of Harvard graduates. You are a part of a network called IIT graduates. You are a part of a network called IIM graduates. So this is what is network, this is what is association, this is what is about memberships. Here you have the billionaires. This is the billionaires club, CII. This is the potential billionaire or the potential CEO club, the Harvard. The cream of India comes here. The cream of India comes here. They get married to each other, they form partnerships with each other, and they run this country, its institutions, economic, social, cultural, and political, by being together. Do you think the social capital of the marginal groups can ever be associated with these clubs? So I don't want to give an answer here, because I want you to think for yourself. What clubs matter? So all these 3 kinds of capital give rise to something called symbolic capital, which is about prestige, which is about legitimacy, and which is about recognition. You are recognized for something. Recognized because you have been trained so well that you have now landed a job at Microsoft. So your cultural capital, your symbolic capital, your economic capital have now converted to a symbolic capital, because Microsoft, Apple, Google, they are identified by the symbol they represent, the symbol of excellence, the symbol of corporate capitalism, the symbol of being at the top of the food chain. So these symbolisms are extremely important, to the extent that now parents want to spend an enormous amount of money to the extent of taking loans from different banks and different individuals to get their children married at the places where they want to. That is what we call dowry. That is what we call spending money out of your pocket. So this way, symbolic capital goes beyond that, and when this is not recognized, it is called symbolic violence. Symbolic violence could be something like a Dalit man not allowed to have a mustache, or a Dalit man not allowed to ride a horse during his wedding ceremony. He has money, he has a certain form of cultural capital, he has certain form of symbolic capital, certain form of social capital. He feels that he has arrived, but the misrecognition that is part of this distinction creates something that is very significant. And the significance of this lies in not recognizing somebody and creating a hierarchy of it. Now let me tell you the hierarchy, let me show you a hierarchy. Let us call this x axis and this is the y axis. So here you have cultural capital and here you have economic capital. And we have the volume of capital commensurate with the positions. If you are working class, you have both low amount of economic capital, you do not have much money. So you cannot invest in cultural capital in terms of your education. You cannot send your children or go to the expensive schools and universities, take private tuitions, so on and so forth. Middle class, it could be uneven. So because middle class could be inhabiting this entire zone in which somebody is here who has less amount of economic capital but has high cultural capital. Think of a Brahmin who doesn't have enough money. In terms of culture or the way culture is associated with capital, it could be at a very high level, but they can be part of what is called EWS, economically weaker section. But at the same time, you could also have somebody in the middle class who is inhabiting this space. So they have both money as well as culture. But at the same time, there is a possibility that they have more money but less culture because they have not invested enough in culture. So money is not just culture, but there could be somebody who is positioned here, who have both high levels of economic capital as well as cultural capital. Think about somebody called Ratan Tata. He was both well educated as well as wealthy. But the way he projected himself in terms of distinction is that he never projected his wealth. So the projection creates a form of distinction, and this distinction is what makes the reproduction of elites in terms of taste very significant. You have money, you have connection, you have everything, but do you have a taste that tells others that you have arrived? You have a class, or you are civilized. So all of them are important in the reproduction of elites, and we have to be careful how do we look at them at a day-to-day life. So education is usually understood as a place wherein we are going to make it um, or break it by attaining certain institutions, by going to certain places. But Bourdieu argues, and as a matter of fact, he did extensive work on this, that although education appears neutral, but it always reproduces inequality. The four forms of capital and the volume of capital that you have is what leads to this education, what you are coming and what you are doing. So, advantage of English medium, even if you want to go to IIT, IIM or during IAS interviews or UPSC interviews, the jobs that you have, how you are rewarded and what kind of activities you are part of. Can you do skating? Can you go golfing? So these are the ways through which distinction happens, and school system and education system are very central in the reproduction of it. So that brings me to the concluding part of today's lecture, that classification struggles are also about our day-to-day understanding of power. So there is a debate that there should not be reservation. There should not be reservation because reservation is an anathema to merit. If you are part of reserved category, that means you are not meritorious. And who are not meritorious? The SCs, the STs, the OBCs, and in certain other institutions, even the women. So, is it they are not meritorious because they are coming through a so-called reservation system? So, you doubt their credibility, you doubt their merit, and you claim that they are here because of this reservation system. But what about EWS, the economically weaker section? They are, or all of them are part of so-called general category or the merit ones. When people speak about EWS, they speak about that yes, they are meritorious, it's just that they are poor. So, the distinction is so significant and stark here is that hundreds of years of inegalitarian activities which created these categories are nullified the moment we speak about certain boundaries. And these certain boundaries are political acts. So, naming is a political act. Bourdieu tells us that if you are a student of political sociology, you should question the assumed characteristics of what is happening in society and why it is happening, why certain questions are raised and why certain questions are not being raised. Who is freezing certain boundaries and why these boundaries need to be reopened so that resources and recognition are not just related to the reproduction of elites, but also understood as part of everyday practices. And power can be understood the way it is practiced in everyday lives, rather than as something that is happening in the Parliament of India or something the Prime Minister or Presidents they are doing. So, we will continue this discussion on elites and politics and power at an everyday level, at an everyday practice from in the next classes also. Thank you very much.